From the Evening Standard in London, I'm David Marsland, and this is The Leader. And sometimes you just have to... It's finally here. The musical version of Disney's Frozen movie has opened in London after 9 months on ice thanks to COVID. And even the cast can't quite believe it. Craig Gallivan plays Olaf.
The worst thing about it was that the date got moved a little bit, and then moved a little bit more, and then so it's like, it's not going to be September, it's going to be February. Oh, okay, I can hang on that long, I can hang on that. And it's going to be June. Oh, I can hang on that. And it just kept going on, and now we're here.
It's snowing! Elsa? Do you want to build a snowman?
The show originally ran on Broadway, where it did $155 million in ticket sales between its debut in 2018 and when it became the first musical to close down in New York because of the pandemic in March 2020. There, Casey Levy was Elsa and Paddy Murin was Anna. Here, Samantha Barks takes the lead role with Stephanie McKeon as her sister due to marry the duplicitous Hans, played by Oliver Ormsson.
It doesn't feel real, honestly. Today when we came into the theatre, I looked on set and actually saw some props and set pieces from the show, and I was like, wow, it's happening. So it feels amazing.
On preview nights, artificial snow fell as fans sang Let It Go outside the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. A pretty spectacular return for a theatre that's opening for the first time since a £60 million refurbishment ordered by its owner Andrew Lloyd Webber. Obiami Ogola, who plays Christoph, thinks it looks just about as amazing as the production itself.
Andrew's done such a good job with renovating a theatre which has such history in London. We were sat in the lobby, walked into the lobby, and it took over us. We were like, wait, this is going to be home for the next year.
But what about that production? Is it any good? Our theatre critic Nick Curtis has seen it, and he's with me now. Nick, does it measure up to the movie?
Well, it depends how good you think the movie is.
Summer in the city of Arendelle. It couldn't be warmer. It couldn't be sunnier. But that's about to change. Forever.
When movies are adapted for the stage, there's always a tension between being loyal to the source material and making it work as a live action experience. And I would say here the balance is slightly wrong. It's very loyal to the film version, but inevitably, however good the stage magic is, and the stage magic is pretty good in this one, it can never match up to the sort of spectacle of computer-generated animation. So, you know, in the film, Elsa conjures ice palaces out of the air, and here you have a staircase coming on. And it's a very impressive staircase, but it's still, you know, it's a staircase.
Yeah, you can't really do that CGI thing. And you would have thought that Disney might have learned when they did The Lion King, which, as you know, is a theatrical event, isn't it? It's not trying to be the movie.
Yeah, they really trusted the director Julie Taymor to totally reinvent it, you know, as a very much a sort of 3D and a very earthy experience. Weirdly, I was talking to one of the puppeteer on the show this week, and he was saying that was the one that made him want to go into puppetry, and he was one of the guys who created Warhorse. That was Julie Taymor was known to be a very radical director. Michael Grandage is in his own way quite radical, but not as avant-garde as Julie Taymor. And I got the feeling he'd been told to stick as close as possible to the source material here, given that the audience is primarily going to be young girls, I think, and families, and I'm sure some young boys. There were quite a lot of little Elsas and Annas in the audience the day I was there, and I think there have been reports of basically Drury Lane being awash with princess dresses as the crowds flock towards this.
And there are puppets in this one. In fact, Olaf is, in your review, one of the highlights, you thought.
Yes, he's operated and voiced by an actor called Craig Gallivan, so basically Craig Gallivan's on stage wearing a version of a snowman costume, but with his face exposed. It's basically just a sort of white outfit. And he's got Olaf strapped to his front and is operating his arms with one hand and his face with the other.
For me, I've not done an awful lot of puppet work in the past, and it's a real sort of, you know, one of those things where triggers blink, trigger for the eyebrows, arms on this hand, feet stuck on my feet, bits of body can come off. It's a puppet, so we can play with the head being a different place to the butt.
Is this one of those big sing-along events that you can go along and belt out Let It Go as you're listening to Samantha Barks?
I imagine some people will. They'll have to go some way to drown out Samantha Barks, because she's amazingly powerful singing it. And I should stress that the two leads in this are both extremely good, the two female leads. It's just my problem with Frozen is that I don't think the basic story is good enough. Really, it's all a bit insubstantial. There's never really any explanation of Elsa's magic. There's not quite enough jeopardy in the script, and some bits of it just don't seem to me to make sense. I mean, she's immensely powerful and can freeze an entire world, and yet she can be captured quite easily. It doesn't really hang together to me. I think the sentiment of the story is very strong, and I think having a female-led story in which romantic love takes a backseat to sisterly love is an interesting thing. And I think the songs are very good, although not all the new ones that are introduced in the stage version work for me. But I just think part of the problems with the stage show are just that the plot of the film itself was never quite polished enough.
For all its flaws, I've been looking on social media and seeing the reactions from some of the people in the crowds, and there are some illicit videos taken at the end, and big standing ovations, lots of applause. Clearly the fans like this one.
Yeah, well, if you're a fan of the film, then you're not going to have the problems that I had with the staging, really. So yeah, undoubtedly it will do well, and for all my reservations, I wish it well, because it has undeniable strengths alongside what I think are fairly major flaws. And it is one of the first major new shows opening in the West End. And it's just wonderful to see these big, magnificent theatres opening up again, full of people having a great time.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about Drury Lane, Theatre Royal Drury Lane there, because it has been closed. It's had a £60 million refurbishment. How does it look right now?
It looks absolutely immaculate. They had an open day last month where they just sort of invited a whole bunch of people along and said, drop by any time, come and have a glass of champagne. So I saw it before the crowds went in and before the set was on the stage, but before, the show wasn't up and running. Andrew Lloyd Webber owns the theatre. This isn't his musical that's in it. He's leased it to Disney. But he has basically taken it back to what it should really have looked like when it was first built. And he's corrected a lot of problems that I gather were caused by a previous refurbishment of the auditorium last century. He's actually reduced the number of seats, which is quite a heroic move by a theatre owner who wants to make money. But it looks sort of brand spanking new. It's extraordinary. There are some paintings he's commissioned for the foyer from scenes from Macbeth, which I'm less enamoured of, but the actual architecture of it and the lights and the sort of sculptural adornments and the glitter and gilt look absolutely fabulous.
Of course, Andrew Lloyd Webber himself opened up his new production of Cinderella recently. Now we have Frozen. Is that big theatre experience now finally coming back to London?
I mean, fingers crossed, yes it is. There's a raft of new openings coming up in the next month and a half. Both, I think Frozen and Cinderella were the two really big musicals. We got Back to the Future coming up as well.
The power of love is a curious thing.
But yes, I mean, we're finally seeing the sort of unblocking of all the stuff that was due to happen when we all got locked down. Frozen was due to open then, Cinderella was in the pipeline, Back to the Future was already due in. So yes, this really does feel like the West End coming back to life, and not just with musicals. We've got Life of Pi.
This is my boat!
Which is supposed to be spectacular, but also quite a serious bit of dramatic storytelling and very serious puppeteering in that, by the way, of course, because there's an animated tiger in it. And even the smaller theatres are reopening. We've got the Donmar reopening in the next sort of 6 weeks, I think. Weirdly, on exactly the same day that Saoirse Ronan makes her stage debut in the Tragedy of Macbeth at the Almeida. So yes, I mean it's really exciting. Things are really finally starting to happen, and as I say, fingers crossed, may they continue to do so.
You can read Nick Curtis's 3-star review of Frozen the Musical at standard.co.uk, and also check out Robert Dex's interview with Samantha Barks, where she reveals that she walked off stage after singing Let It Go and collapsed in tears into her co-star's arms. That's it from The Leader for now. We're back on Monday at 4 p.m.